What is up, and welcome to Not Another CFB Pod. This is week 14, weekend roundup. We're going into the conference championship schedule this weekend. It's been a crazy week, not only with big upsets, but we've had a bunch of crazy coaching changes I don't think anyone saw coming, including my team, the Oklahoma Sooners, who we'll get into that later. But obviously some big upsets happened the previous weekend that affected the CFP, which is what we're going to talk about first going into this. This is the Week 14 CFP rankings. Right now at number 1, no surprise. We've still got Georgia. Georgia's just a dominant force right now. They had basically a home game against Georgia Tech. I don't know if anyone has seen the screenshot of Georgia Tech Stadium during that Georgia game. It's basically red. It's kind of sad, but unfortunately, Georgia's up right now. Georgia Tech is way down, still transitioning from its magical triple option years. So Georgia's number 1, needless to say. Michigan, number 2. They jumped all the way up, and I predicted this in my top 10 rankings. I had them at 3, but obviously in the little write-up part is where I said I think Michigan's going to be number 2 in the CFP, and sure enough, they flipped places basically with Ohio State. Michigan at number 2. What a massive upset that was over Ohio State. Jim Harbaugh gets his first win against the rival Buckeyes. And guess what? PG's picks called it. We're coming off a 5-1 weekend that includes picking not only Michigan against the spread, but Michigan moneyline sprinkle. Smashed it. The only loss we had was a bad beat. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but incredible weekend overall for not only Michigan and their fans who deserve this, but also PG's picks for sticking his neck out there a little bit and taking a shot with Michigan and being correct. Number 3, Alabama. Not a massive surprise here. This is basically where I figured they would be. Auburn should have beaten them. If they had a starting quarterback, Auburn would have beaten them. They couldn't find a way to do it. Alabama's in big trouble against Georgia this weekend in the SEC Championship. I'm just going to put that out there right now. Talk about that matchup a little bit more later. Number 4, Cincinnati, 12-0. I think this is where they're going to stay. I don't know that Oklahoma State with a win jumps them. I think Alabama's going to lose, and that's not going to matter. Oklahoma State coming in at 5. I think Cincinnati and Oklahoma State are going to find their way into the playoff if they win this weekend. But we'll see, because right behind them is Notre Dame at number 6. Who just lost their head coach. Obviously, they're done playing regular season games. They're not in a conference, so they don't have a conference championship game this weekend. It's going to be really interesting because there's plenty of scenarios, which I'll get into later, that Notre Dame can get in. Notre Dame is a one-loss team. They don't have any major big wins, but obviously their only loss coming against undefeated Cincinnati. It's going to be interesting if they get in with no head coach. I made a joke on Twitter this week about that. It's going to be unbelievable. Here's all that has to happen. I'll get into it now. Alabama needs to get beaten by Georgia, which I think is going to happen. Then one upset of the following: Michigan losing in their game with Iowa, Cincinnati losing in their game against Houston, or Oklahoma State losing against Baylor. Any of those 3 things happen, any of those, they're in. They just need that Georgia win over Alabama and one other upset, and they're in there. Could be interesting with no head coach. I'm just saying. So right behind Notre Dame is Ohio State, taking that L, but only dropping to 7. And right in front of them, Mississippi jumps Baylor for the 8 spot. Baylor fell one back to 9. I don't love it, but I get it. So I think even if Baylor beats Oklahoma State this weekend, it's going to have to be a lot of chaos in order for them to get in to the college football playoff. And I think even if they do, they'll be the 4 seed and likely just get torched by Georgia, which, I mean, is that even that fun? Maybe so. Maybe getting to the playoff is still worth it for a team like Baylor who hasn't been in yet. Remember, they got shafted in the first college football playoff, them and TCU. Very interesting scenario. And then at 10, Oregon. That's as far as I'll go. Those teams can't really get into the final college football playoff, so not a big deal other than for conference bowls like the Sugar Bowl, the Rose Bowl, etc. All right, next let's get into the last weekend's, big games. There's a bunch of rivalry games, bunch of big upsets. you may have missed something. So on Thursday night, this was the night of Thanksgiving, Ole Miss upset their rival Mississippi State, a Wild Egg Bowl. We had a pick on that pushed. Can't be too upset. It was the Ole Miss team total over 31. They scored exactly 31, so can't be too upset, I guess. Better than a loss. Friday night, Cincinnati beats East Carolina 35-13. Once again, it was one of those games where Cincinnati had to score a late touchdown to kind of make that final result look a little better than maybe it really was, but still a solid win for them. Iowa defeats Nebraska 21-28. And now all Iowa really needed to happen was for Wisconsin to get upset. And sure enough, Minnesota at home upsets Wisconsin, who had won a bunch of games in a row. Really liked them coming in. Thought they were one of the hotter teams of the year. Gets beat by Minnesota 23-13. I mean, Minnesota worked hard for that, and they deserve every bit of it. It's just wild because now Iowa's going to face off with Michigan in the Big Ten Championship. It's a 10-point spread, I believe, right now. So I think the game's going to be closer than that, though. But not an official pick. Not an official pick, just something I think. The big result from Saturday was Michigan upsetting Ohio State. Insane game. 42-27, the Wolverines get it done. Jim Harbaugh's first win over Michigan, and we called it, PG's Picks. I wrote a little article about that game on codasportscappers.com. I was pretty confident Michigan could get it done, and they outright won it big time. I really hate to be like a rub-ins guy, but I really feel like that game went exactly how I thought it was going to go. Michigan dominated the trenches on both sides of the ball. They were just way more physical. It's going to be interesting to see how Michigan matches up potentially with Georgia, because they run kind of the same style that Georgia does, a very physical, they want to run the ball first. But I feel like Georgia has a little bit better athletes. It's just kind of like they're better at their own game. I don't know if that's the best matchup if you're going to upset Georgia, but in this game against Ohio State, Michigan came up with a bunch of explosive plays that I think we didn't really see coming. I mean, Ohio State had been playing much better defense as of late, but Michigan just had their number. It was the big result on Saturday. Alabama beat Auburn 24-22 in quadruple overtime. It actually took 4 overtimes to get this done. I'm a firm believer if Auburn had their starting quarterback, they win this game straight up, but they didn't have him. Bama found a way in the very end. Bryce Young did have a really nice final drive in that game where they had to score a touchdown in the fourth. It was just 10-10 going into overtime. Pretty disgusting if you ask me. Oklahoma State found a way to win 37-33. Oklahoma had a 9-point lead in the fourth quarter, and I'm still kind of sick about that. But it is what it is. I mean, Oklahoma State deserved that game. There were some bad calls late, I'll admit. You should have had an extra shot, an extra series there from the 2-yard line. There was a pretty egregious pass interference penalty in the end zone. I'm just not the type that likes to complain about refs because what's done is done. We can't go back and change it. I wish we could, but it's just that type of negativity that if you just think about it for too long, it's going to drag you down. And like I said, there's nothing I can do about it. So the less I can think about it, the better. Just move on to the next game. I do feel like we got to talk about the coaching carousel that's going down right now in college football. Absolutely wild. I'm feeling a little better now. As you know, I'm an OU fan, and Lincoln Riley left for USC. I couldn't believe it. When I saw the rumors about Lincoln Riley to LSU, I thought, no way. That's a harder job. It doesn't make any sense, et cetera, et cetera. And then lo and behold, my buddy texts me, my buddy Chase was like, Lincoln Riley to USC, no, or something. And I was like, no way. Like, that doesn't make any sense. It's a program that's in shambles right now. They just fired a head coach. I don't think he would do that. I kind of laughed it off, and he's like, no, like it's happening. And so I looked into it. Sure enough, it's happening. Couldn't believe it. Was pretty salty, but ran out quickly to get a video on Twitter. At the time, I didn't know what to think. I felt pretty sick. It felt a lot like, and Oklahoma City Thunder fans will understand this, but it felt a lot like when Kevin Durant left the Thunder. We didn't know how to feel. It kind of felt like getting broken up with, and that's kind of how this felt. But the longer I looked at it, the more it made sense. USC is going to be that school that if he can get them going, he's got free reign to any recruit in California, which is obviously there's massive talent in California. He's already gotten a ton of recruits that he had for OU to flip and go to USC. At the time of recording, he's gotten Malachi Nelson, who was the number 1 or 2 quarterback in his class in 2023 that was committed to OU, but now is committed to USC. He's going to do well there, and I get why he went. It's an easier place to win in terms of you don't have as much competition in your conference. But you're USC now. You've got a massive brand. You've got a rebuild on your hand in terms of your roster probably doesn't have as much talent as you'd like to. You know, your home stadium has really very little juice. But you would think a move like this may get those USC fans back in the building. It makes sense. OU going to SEC is certainly going to be tougher. And you could say that Lincoln ran from that, and I wouldn't totally disagree. But I think it just makes sense for him in terms of a career longevity standpoint. It's just going to definitely be easier to win at USC going forward. The only team you got to worry about is Oregon. That's it. They're going to play Notre Dame every year, but Notre Dame just lost their head coach. So that gets a lot easier too, more than likely. So in the end, I understand what Lincoln Riley did. I don't necessarily agree with the way he went about it, and I think that's the issue. We've also got to cover Brian Kelly to LSU. That's right. Brian Kelly leaves Notre Dame in a position to make the college football playoff to be with LSU in Baton Rouge. To me, this move, yes, he is a good coach. I'm not going to sit here and say that. He's not. He hasn't won a championship, and I get that. But he still had Notre Dame in the playoff a few times. They may have him in there this year and not even be at the school when they get in. I think he's a good coach. I just think it's an odd fit with LSU. You look at LSU's successful coaches like Les Miles, like Ed Ogeron, who had that 2019 team that was beautifully put together, but then it all fell apart, obviously, because Joe Brady went to the NFL. They lost assistants. They lost tons and tons of players, and so obviously it's going to crumble. But the difference in those guys like Ogeron and Les Miles those guys are very, fun personalities, kind of crazy guys, but guys you can kind of play for. Brian Kelly, to me, is more of a low-key, he's a program guy, hey, just do your job, Bill Belichick type. I don't know how that's going to work in Baton Rouge. It's not the Louisiana way, really, in a way. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful in any way. I just think that's the way the LSU typically markets themselves, as like this fun, let's go, rowdy school. And the image for Brian Kelly, at least at Notre Dame, was very clean and we're a program first, and it's not an individual thing. I'm just saying it could be interesting. I think it's going to take a little while to work because he is a program guy, but I think it can work. So obviously that leaves an opening at Notre Dame. Many people think a Notre Dame assistant will be promoted into that job. I don't know what to think. I think it could be Fickle. I think it could be Matt Campbell because those are both program guys. I think those are probably high on their list if they don't promote from within. Defensive coordinator has been rumored with this head coaching job, so we'll see. Obviously, we'll update you guys on our episode coming out Friday morning with PG's picks. We'll let you know any coaching moves that are finalized. Before we continue on to this weekend's big game, I want to thank the sponsor of Not Another CFB Pod. Not Another CFB Pod is sponsored by Rogue Energy. Rogue Energy is an alternative to sugary energy drinks that can make you get a boost of energy and crash quickly, while also putting a lot of sugar into your body. Rogue Energy comes in 4 unique product lines to best suit your personal needs. Their low-calorie, no-sugar energy formula is the perfect alternative to sugar-filled canned energy drinks and sodas. Their extreme formula provides the most energy, focus, and sports performance possible. Their hydration line offers focus ingredients without the added caffeine. Drink it anytime you're thirsty. Finally, their shake formula is a delicious, zero-calorie energy milkshake. The thing that also makes Rogue Energy unique from other powdered drinks is that it dissolves really quickly, and you won't find any chalky textures in your drink. With over 10 flavors to choose from, we at the Coda Sports Gambling Network definitely recommend Rogue Energy. Go to their website, www.rogueenergy.com, and use the promo code CODA to receive 10% off your order. rogueenergy.com and use the promo code COTA, K-O-T-A, for 10% off. All right, so before we close it out, let's get into this weekend's big matchups. We've got the Conference Championship weekend. Tons of games starting Friday and going through Saturday. It's sad. The college football season has come to an end. It's been an amazing one. So I'm hoping that this final weekend holds some big upsets like the last weekend did, maybe some drama-filled games, if nothing else. Kicking it off for us on Friday night, we've got the Pac12 Championship, Oregon Ducks at Utah Utes. This is a big one. Utah taking the first matchup between the two, 38-7, but that was in Utah. This is going to be a neutral site game. This is going to be actually at Allegiant Stadium. So we'll see. I think Utah is coming in really hot. They're winners of, 5 in a row with Cam Rising at quarterback. I don't know. I did say in my breakdown originally of that game that we picked Utah in, I thought Utah was going to get him at home, and then Oregon was going to win in that neutral site matchup in the championship game. So I can't go back on that now. I'm staying away for now. First thing Saturday morning, you can look forward to the Baylor Bears, Oklahoma State Cowboys, Big 12 championship game in AT&T Stadium for the first time in 7 years. It's going to go to a team that's not named Oklahoma Sooners. Kind of a crazy deal, but Oklahoma State found a way to win Bedlam big. Baylor Bears, Oklahoma State Cowboys, Big 12 Championship that Saturday morning. I'll tell you what, this is an interesting game. Oklahoma State coming off the first time they've beaten Oklahoma in a lot of years. Could be a letdown spot. If you look at Baylor's last game, though, they sneakily got away with a 27-24 win over Texas Tech, and it was because the Texas Tech kicker missed a game-tying field goal at the very end of the game. Baylor easily could have lost that game. They're definitely not playing their best ball. Will they have their starting quarterback, Gary Bohannon, in this game? I don't know. I think if they don't have Bohannon, this is a no-doubt win for the Cowboys, but it could be a letdown spot. The Cowboys have a ton of pressure on them right now. Are they ready to take that next step? For story's sake, I kind of hope so. They've been really fun to watch here at the end of the season, so excited to see what they can do. Next, at 3 p.m. Central, we've got Georgia Bulldogs, Alabama Crimson Tide, SEC Championship game going down in Atlanta. That place is going to be full of Bulldogs fans. It's going to be a pseudo home game for the Georgia Bulldogs. I just think the Georgia Bulldogs are going to kill Alabama here. Obviously, it's Nick Saban. He's capable of anything, so you can't just say this is an easy game. But Georgia's just, the way they are on the defensive line, Alabama struggled to block a pretty mediocre defensive line from Auburn just last week. How are they going to block this basically NFL defensive line from Georgia? I personally can't see it happening. I think Georgia beats Alabama big time here, but it's Georgia sports. Disappointment happens, so we'll see. Same time slot as that SEC Championship game. We got the AAC Championship game going down. Cincinnati takes on Houston Cougars. I believe that this is a home game for Cincinnati. Yes, that's the way AAC works. I don't love that. It's going to be another home game for Cincinnati, but this is a ranked win for Cincinnati to add to their arsenal. I think they get it done. They probably cover even in this game. Houston's been a little bit of a paper tiger this year, played a pretty easy schedule. Again, their only loss on this year comes to Texas Tech, and Texas Tech's not a great team. That was a long time ago. Houston's definitely playing better football than that right now, but I still don't think Houston can really put up a whole lot of a fight against Cincinnati. You just kind of have to wonder if this pressure is going to get to Cincinnati in this spot. But again, it's a home game, so expect them to roll there. Then we got Saturday night, 7 o'clock Central, Michigan Wolverines, Iowa Hawkeyes for the Big Ten Championship game. Going down in the Dome in Indianapolis, Indiana, like it always is, Lucas Oil Stadium. I like Michigan big here over Iowa. Iowa's been a fun team, and they can keep it close with a team, certainly. Michigan right now looks like they're on a mission, and this is a similar handicap, in my opinion, to the Oklahoma State game where they finally beat their rivals. Do they look ahead a little too much and let Iowa stay around? I think it's possible. Michigan hasn't beaten Ohio State in a very long time. They finally did it. Now they've got, a 10.5, 11-point spread against Iowa. Maybe they overlook them a little and Iowa keeps it close. We'll see. And then finally, we've got, at that same time slot at 7, we got the ACC Championship. I don't think anybody could have predicted this one. Pittsburgh, Wake Forest. I love this matchup. I think this game's going to be so fun. I know more people are going to be watching the Michigan game, but I think this is one to flip over to. It'll be on ABC. This is a wide open game. You got Kenny Pickett, who's had a great season, versus Sam Hartman, who's had a great season. quarterback duel all the way. I think the over-under is 72.5. Just keep your eye on that one, folks. We may be revisiting that one on Friday morning. All right, so that'll wrap our show. If you're watching on YouTube, you can tell this is the next day. I forgot to record the outro. Obviously, not feeling 100%, but battling through it. We're going to be back on Friday with a big show. We're going to have a lot of news go down, I'm sure, between now and then, so keep your eye out. We'll also have PG's picks. 6 picks. Again, we went 5-1 last weekend, 5-1 the week before. Getting really hot at the right time of year, guys. It's time. Keep tailing these picks and stay locked into Not Another CFB Pod. Appreciate you guys watching, and shout out to all the Coda Cappers.